totally stumbled on it by accident. In 1989, I had a 1937 Stinson Reliant, and I'd owned it for 8 years, and I was ready to sell it and totally restore my own airplane. And I wanted to do a ground-up restoration. And I had sold the airplane at Oshkosh that year to a guy in Australia. Like the next day, I'm walking down the flight line and run into a friend of mine from Wichita, Kansas that owned several antique airplanes. I told him, hey, we'd sold the Stinson. He goes, now what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm looking for a project. And he said, well, my Waco's for sale. And he says, well, it's a 1932 UEC Waco. He says, one of 45 made. There's only 8 of them in existence. And there's only one flying. But he said the engine was dead on it, basically. He said the last time we flew it, which happened to be at the fly-in that I had seen it years earlier. And so he kind of briefly described to me what it needed, and it was no longer ferryable, but the airplane was all together and intact. It wasn't like buying a basket case. So that was the good part of it. So within a couple of weeks, I had made arrangements to go down and look at the airplane, and that was in the probably about the 1st of August. Well, by the 1st of November, I had purchased the airplane from him, and I now own me a 1932 Waco. And it was really kind of ugly at the time. Somebody, over the years, the airplane had been continually maintained and flown all of its life. It had never really been mothballed and put away, and it used it like you'd use an old pickup truck today, you know, and it was just all beat up and kind of tethered. And actually, I had built a home, a custom home with a basement as a workshop, and I had it built large enough to where I could actually assemble the airplane in the basement as I was going to do the restoration. So I brought the airplane home and put all the pieces in the basement and started working on it. And the original estimate I had given myself was going to be a 5-year restoration process. We got started on it. I immediately took the fuselage down to the bare bones, and as you're taking it apart, you really start discovering history. And as it turned out, the airplane was very original and very authentic and had never really had anything replaced on it as far as the woodwork. And so now we knew we had a good basic shape that it needed to be exactly, not been modified, and so you had to, you know, I had the actual history right there.
Cirrus Design's Vision SJ50 single-engine personal jet offers exceptional fuel efficiency, flexible seating for up to 7, advanced avionics, and all the Cirrus safety features you expect, including the Cirrus airframe parachute system. With its V-tail design, the Cirrus Vision is technologically advanced, yet engineered to be simple to fly, to allow owner pilots more lifestyle pursuits than any other personal aircraft. Learn more about the Vision SJ50 at cirrusdesign.com.
The 5-year process actually turned into 10. There was over 60 people involved during that process that helped me out. Some of them were paid, some of them were volunteers, some of them had a little job, some of them had very large jobs. But without John Krikovich, I would probably be still working on this airplane. It was just so hard, and he is so dedicated to helping people out, and especially me. And he had helped me on a previous airplane, and he became kind of my father figure very early in my involvement with antique airplanes, which really started in 1979 is when I really got fascinated by all this. And the hook was set then, and it's led me to this. And I have to say, being a real Stinson fan, they are a wonderful airplane, but the Waco airplane is definitely the favorite of mine, and I just can't believe I'm lucky enough to own this airplane. I've been flying for 10 years. I've had the pleasure of taking over 300 people for rides in the airplane, just so they could experience it. A lot of the very late 20s, early 30s airplanes didn't have the greatest handling characteristics. This airplane is actually a delight to fly, very comfortable. It doesn't have a mean streak about it. It cruises at about 112 to 15 miles an hour. In a time when Model A Fords were driving in the gravel roads, to think about traveling 400 miles in less than 4 hours had to be like a space shuttle would be to us today. And every time I fly it, I feel like I'm living in a time frame of that era, and it's just a wonderful deal.
Integra Release 9 sets a new standard with the easiest to use pilot interface in all of general aviation. Access to any of Release 9's powerful capabilities is as simple as pressing the desired bidirectional page key. Pressing the same key in a desired direction navigates through the clearly labeled tabs with no more guessing as to what a given pilot input would do. Avidyne's Integra Release 9 is the next generation in fully integrated flight deck technology, and the easiest to use page and tab user interface is just one of the many benefits designed to make your flying easier and safer.
To me, it's not perfect and it's not as beautiful as it could be, but I'm to the point where all I want to do is just fly it and enjoy it. I have no intentions of restoring it again. You know, I'd never want to go through that process again. It really demanded a lot of my life. I give up a lot of things for my family and myself, which I have to give them a lot of credit. My wife was very, very understanding and very forgiving. If I was to want to do it again, I don't think it'd happen. Nor do I want to go through that process. But it's amazing, even at my home airport, people that don't even know airplanes will maybe come by the hangar or drive by the hangar, you know, and you can just see them looking at the airplane, and they really want to come in, you know, and look at it. And of course, I just invite them in. I say, get out of your car, you can come in and look at it, you know, and I really enjoy sharing it with kids, young kids, and giving them rides, or just letting them get up in the airplane and sit in it. And then usually also the other thing I try to do is, if I'm giving somebody a ride, especially young children, I try to have their parents take a picture with the airplane and with the IN number, you know, the identification, so maybe 50 years down the road they can say, you know, I rode in an old airplane and I've got a picture of it. Well, hopefully they can, you know, look that up, and it'll be in the records on the Federal Aviation website, and they can find out who owns that airplane now after it's been passed on. You know, I really don't own the airplane. I'm just a caretaker of it. You know, and someday it'll be passed on, I hope, and future generations can see it and live in a time frame by seeing that thing, and hopefully appreciate what pioneers of this era have done. It's sometimes very frustrating to me that some people go out and just get in an airliner and go from wherever to wherever and take it all for granted. You know, that just didn't happen magically. Pioneers of aviation and airplanes created that for people today. Having the Waco now, I've actually found the perfect airplane for me. It will never be sold as long as I'm alive and I can fly. I will just continue to share it with people, and so they can see the experience. I remember also being up here during all the years of coming up here and wanting to go for a ride in an old airplane, you know, and wanting to share that experience, and people would be willing to do it and give it to you. People like Jack Greiner and who's probably given thousands of rides to people in airplanes, you know, and he's one of my idols as far as doing that. And I've been lucky enough to share the airplane with Jack a couple of times, and he was a very, very avid Waco historian and owner. He's had several of them over the years, and be able to repay that back is just one of my dreams.